Welcome to this week's Fundraising Friday. This week, we're talking about whether or not your organization is ready to seek grants. When I talk to people about finding grants to fund their priority projects, I tend to get one of two answers. One is, great, grants are going to solve all of our problems. And the second is, there's no way we can get a grant. The truth probably lies somewhere in between those two. So what questions do you need to ask yourself to decide whether or not your organization is grant ready? I've got 6. First of all, do you have access to someone who can write? Sounds obvious, but I've read an awful lot of grants written from people who could not put a coherent sentence together. Whether you've got someone internal who can write it, whether you've got a volunteer, or whether you outsource, you need to make sure that someone can put together a high quality application. Second of all, do you have a well-defined program? You're going to need to talk about your program in a way that the grant reviewers are going to be able to understand it. If you don't have a well-defined program, you might need to go back and define it or find funding other ways. Now, you can find grants for operating support, and I've written a number of blogs and done a number of videos on that topic, and you can look and see how you might do that if you're looking for operating support. Third, is this a project you're going to do anyway? Most people who seek grants and get into trouble doing so are because they're chasing money. You don't want to submit a grant just because there's money out there for it if you're not going to do it anyway. Otherwise, you're going to end up with serious budgetary issues. Fourth, is your project new, innovative, or sexy? In general, funders want to fund something that's new. They don't want to fund ongoing support. That's not 100% accurate, but if you can describe how your program is different than or better than anything else that's out there, you'll be much more competitive. Fifth, are there other avenues to find funding for this project? It takes a lot of time to seek grants. It takes a lot of time internally in order to find a grant funder, to cultivate that funder, write the application and submit it. And generally there's a pretty long lag between when you submit the grant and when you actually receive the check. So sometimes there's better avenues to raise money for the kinds of projects you're looking for. And sixth and finally, do you have organizational support? Is your executive director and your board on board with spending the time and resources to try and do grant seeking for your organization? Is your finance office ready and able to give you the budgetary numbers that you need? You'll need your financial reports, you might need your audit, you'll certainly need a budget for the project that you're working on. And can your program staff give you the data on the number of people served, their demographics, and the outcome that you're looking for? If you don't have that kind of support internally, then you're going to be climbing a long hill in trying to seek grant support. That's this week's Fundraising Friday. Thanks. Have a great weekend.